you. I don't think I've ever seen an electrified ukulele before. Thank you, Jeannie. Wouldn't it be amazing if we could actually just remember that? I mean, really, that's what all of our practices are for, is to remind ourselves again and again, again and again, that there really is only love. And who would we be if we could actually be in the world, actually remembering that? You know, it's one thing to sit here in this beautiful community, or to sit at home, you lucky people in your pajamas with your coffee, being that love, right? But what happens when we turn on the news? What happens when we get in the car and we're driving and people are cutting us off, or people aren't going fast enough? Because, you know, everybody should drive at the speed I am driving at. So the book study that we're doing is Tama Kieves, and if you missed her last week, I really highly recommend you check out her talk, because she's fabulous. And we're already talking about her coming back next year, so she and I were like, oh, we're like sisters. I was like, you know, the energetic, the New York Jew who found another path because that path didn't really have space for women, right? There was a lot in there, so she's really lovely. How do we live it, right? This idea of learning to trust ourselves, I want to be really clear that what we're talking about is not trusting our mind or our ego or our agenda. We're talking about trusting the truth of who we are. And sometimes it gets drowned out, right? It gets drowned out, and it gets drowned out by so much. I love this. This is from, so we're in section 3 for this week, but from 1 and 2, one of the quotes that I loved was, she says, I had always thought that the driven, critical voice within me, anybody in here have one of those? Would help me shape up and get ahead. I had no idea that voice was denying me access to my true power. I didn't know I had true power. Can anybody relate to this? I've done talks about this before, about how we use like being realistic, right, as a way to shut down our capacity to be able to listen to the divine wisdom that we actually are. Because that wisdom isn't linear. That wisdom doesn't like move in the progression that we think it's supposed to move in, ever, right? And so we want to control it, and we want to limit it. And so the invitation here is to actually, this whole book study is about stepping into your true power. And one of the things we're being invited to know is that we need to just follow the breadcrumbs. I know we want to get the perfectly shaped, orbed, full vision of how it is that we get from A to Z. How about you just get from A to B? How about that's the only thing you're actually focused on, is just getting from A to B, and listening again, and then B to C, and then listening again. And it might take you all the way to K, but you still keep listening. That's the piece. We never want to stop listening. I love how she says, this is not a trip for tourists. This is a trip for travelers. Are you willing to travel this footpath to freedom? Freedom from all the limitations you have placed on yourself. Now, some of it is cultural, some of it is familial, some of it is ancestral, some of it is all those things. But at this point and time in your life, guess what? You get to choose whether you're still buying into that stuff. You actually have a choice. You are not a victim of whatever narrative you heard growing up. You get to rewrite that narrative in a way that is actually being authentic, because this so aligns with our core values about authenticity. This is an invitation to uncover whatever blockages you have about who your most authentic self is. And I can guarantee that your most authentic self is more than enough. Whatever voice is telling you that you're not enough, that you're not worthy enough, that you're not strong enough, that you're not healthy enough, that you're not young enough, whatever that narrative is, it is not your most authentic self speaking. And one of the things she talks about is how we're being invited to follow our feeling intuition. And we're not talking about our emotions. Are we clear about this? She makes this distinction. I think she could make it more. We're not just talking about following an emotionality, because then all we're doing is falling into reactivity. What we're talking about is what we in Unity would probably call our power of wisdom and our power of spiritual understanding. That those are the pieces that we want to access within ourselves. That we want to understand ourselves through a spiritual prism, and that we want to stand in that wisdom. Now, for me, that wisdom lives right here, right? Right here. And when I'm out of alignment, I know it. I know it. I'll say to Chris, I'm like, oh, I'm getting that thing in my stomach again. And she'll say, well, you got to go figure out where you're out of alignment. Because I can tell. My awareness, I've cultivated an understanding of how that intuition is speaking to me in ways that my human self can understand. And that's just about practice, right? That's about practicing and listening and being like, well, what does that mean when that happens? Oh, I'm not in alignment. Oh, what does that mean when that happens? Oh, that means I need to just keep following the next breadcrumb. You're all on an individual journey. I can share my experience, but your experience is going to be your experience. So you have to be willing to step into that pathway, because it truly is a way to freedom, a way of knowing yourself from the deepest understanding of yourself. And in this world, it is, right now it is so easy to fall into victim consciousness, isn't it? I'm powerless, there's nothing I can do, doesn't make a difference, what's the point? So we honor that humanness of ourself that gets overwhelmed. Anybody in here overwhelmed? Right? We honor that sense of overwhelm that our humanness might be feeling, but we meet it with the truth of who we are and the truth of who and what the world is. Can you feel the difference in that? That's how as we heal within ourselves those things, it creates a space where that becomes possible everywhere. And I know sometimes we talk about like, oh, my peace is like rippling outward. I'm guilty of it, I do it. But the way it actually works is it's immediate everywhere. There's no rippling out. If I am peace, then peace is available everywhere. In that moment, absolutely in that moment. Now, what would happen, like World Day of Prayer? I felt it. I felt that there was something that was creating an anchor, something that I could step into and lean into, because Unity's World Day of Prayer was happening all over this planet, right, at the same time. That's how we create this possibility for change. Because the part that we also have to remember, which our mind doesn't want us to remember, is that intuition will answer the questions that your thoughts are actually only going to churn out more questions. We don't want to get caught up in the mental activity of what it is that we are called to become. We want to be moving from an embodied, authentic, integrated understanding of our divine identity. And that means we have to embrace process. Everybody just breathe, because I know, like, all the books out there are like the 3 steps to being successful. Follow these 10 steps and you will achieve. I wish I had the secret code and it doesn't exist. That's why I can't give it to you. We're in process, always in process. Can we actually embrace that we are in process? I love this quote from her. There are times in life when the most rational thing you can do is to take a risk to save your own life, your inner life. How many people in here have experienced those moments, right? Where there's a choice that you have to make. And you can either follow the well-laid path that perhaps our parents told us was the path that we needed to follow, or we can be true to our most authentic self. And I love this quote, to live is to be slowly born. What if we actually were continually allowing ourselves to be born? Right? You know, when I started my journey at 11, wanting to be a rabbi, do you think this is where I thought I was going to end up? Right? So from being a rabbi to being told no, to following my emotional response, I was 11, give me a break, right? Following my emotional support, which was like, well, then if I'm not going to have anything to do with you. If you don't want me, I don't want you. And I walked away from a spiritual life. But that call was so strong and so real that where I ended up falling into a spiritual connection was through my art, through my creativity. I started off doing lighting design and costume design and stage, like my creativity. How do I create a world that works for this place in time that we're establishing? And then it became becoming an actor and a director and a fight director. It just kept changing and shifting. And if I hadn't listened to the breadcrumbs, I would still be a waitress at Skates on the Bay. That's where I was, Skates on the Bay, right? I'd still probably be there because it was secure. I had medical insurance, I had easy hours, right? I was a cocktail waitress. I didn't have to deal with all that food stuff. I just carried drinks and appetizers to people and made a lot of money because it Skates on the Bay. That didn't answer the call. That didn't answer the truth of who I was, right? And so from being an actor, I know, do you think I plan to be here from being an actor, right? Can you see how the breadcrumbs, I just followed the breadcrumbs. And at each moment, the breadcrumbs told me something different than what I thought the end result was going to be. When I got my MFA and moved to New York and had my theater company and I'm doing work on Broadway and off Broadway, and my dream is for the Tony. And the next thing I know, I'm at Agape becoming a practitioner. Right? Right? I followed the breadcrumbs, terrifying as it was. I had to take that risk. And all that I have done in the past serves me now. You think that I get up here and do what I do and I talk and I speak because I was just born like this? That acting put me in a black box with just me, myself, and I. And I had to figure out who I was. I had to figure out what my authentic voice was. But I kept it contained. I only had an authentic voice when I was in a rehearsal room or when I was with an audience on stage. Becoming a practitioner and becoming a minister is where I truly found the fullness of my authentic voice. And that really was the breadcrumbs I was following the whole time. What is your authenticity? What is trying to show up? And yes, sometimes we lose it, right? We lose the thread. When I first got to Agape, and I have shared this, I remember sitting there with somebody and they were looking at my palm because they read palms, and she said, well, your purpose. And I was like, oh, I don't have one. And I was dead serious. She's like, what do you mean you don't have one? I was like, I don't have a purpose. Look at me. Look at where I am right now. I don't have a purpose. I don't feel directed. I don't feel like I'm going anywhere. I'm just like treading water. Anybody ever feel like they're treading water? And she looked at me and said, "Oh, so you think you're so special that you're an exception?" I was like, "Oh." Don't you know, the people who say the things that like land, right? And I was like, "Oh, look at that. My lack of self-worth had me actually thinking and speaking as if I was so special that I couldn't be someone with any kind of purpose whatsoever." So we have these moments of doubt, and when that happens, I love how she says this, "Sometimes I'm clinging to a lack of belief with such faith it is astonishing." Anybody in here do that too? And again, it's that language of, well, I have to be realistic. Well, I didn't get this, I applied for this and I didn't get it, and I applied for this and I didn't get it, and I applied for this and I didn't get it. So when I apply for this, I'm not going to get it. That is putting our faith in our lack of belief. Can you feel that? So last week, we got some unfortunate news, which I've been navigating, right? So as you know, we submitted a grant for my sabbatical next year, and we did not get it. And it was an amazing grant. I mean, what we put together as a proposal was amazing, but we did not get the grant. And I went through a piece where that was my source. The grant was the source of my sabbatical. Not source being the source of my sabbatical. I got attached that it had to show up through that grant. So how about I blow that up? How about I step into possibility? How about if I stop clinging to that, I didn't get it, so that means I can't go on sabbatical. Everyone in here, hear me loud and clear. I am going on sabbatical. Right? I'm going on sabbatical, and and it's going to be that part of that dream is going to happen, right? And it's not going to look the way I thought it was going to look, but is it still going to happen? Because I'm committed to it. It's a calling to go walk those pilgrimages all over the world. It's a calling. We have to learn to stand in those things and not dismiss them and not diminish them and not say, "Oh, no, that can't happen to me." Right? That's other people. Chris and I went to the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence, do a bingo night in Santa Rosa once a month. And Chris and I went last night. It was so much fun. And I don't know if you know this about my wife, but whenever there's any kind of a contest or a raffle or anything like that, she always gets something. Always gets something. Do I ever get anything? No. Right? And again, I had that moment. Did she get something last night? Of course she did. Right? And I must have had 20 chances to get something, and none of them resulted in me getting anything. We cling to it. That's my story. I don't get stuff, she gets stuff. She doesn't cling to that. She clings to, I get stuff. She's the kind of person, she walks down the street, she'll find $20 just sitting there on the street. She finds money all the time, right? You know? That's right. I'm aligned with her, and so... So part of what we're invited into is that the less we listen to doubt, the less we listen to the quote-unquote realistic voice, right? That is where we actually are growing our capacity to be more intuitive, to listen to that divine wisdom, to make a choice that everyone around you might be looking at you and going, "Oh, you're doing that, are you?" Right? I remember when I went to France the first time, and everybody in my world was like, "Are you crazy? You have no money. You're in the midst of a divorce. Your expenses have doubled. And you like, what are you thinking?" And I knew I had to go. And who did I meet on that trip? Right there. She's right up there. I knew I had to go. Did it make logical sense? No. Was it rational in any way, shape, or form? No. But it was the thing that I knew I was being invited to step into. Oh, and I love this other quote. She's got great quotes in the front of every one of the chapters, but to choose doubt as a philosophy of life is akin to choosing immobility as a means of transportation. Because what does doubt do? It freezes us. It makes us unable to choose. So instead of asking, what if I'm doing it wrong? What if I make a mistake? What if we ask, what if I'm choosing right? Who would I be if I believed I was always choosing right? Who would you be if you believed you were always choosing right? And what would you do now if you believed you were making the right decisions? How would that impact what you were doing? How would that impact the experience of what you were doing? Do you think you would go into whatever you were choosing with a lighter sense of self? With more joy? With more energy? And remember, we've talked about this too. The things that feed your soul are the things that you get energy from. The things that sort of light you up. And you all know what I mean by that, yes? And that doesn't mean that those things aren't hard and that sometimes you feel like you're slogging through. Kevin and I probably both felt like we were slogging through the last couple weeks. But there's something else that we're answering. There is the thing that is sustaining us through the challenges, through the situations that make it seem quote unquote hard, but there is that which we know we are called to. And the other piece she talks about in this section is about play. Playing. How many people in here still play? Oh, I love it. Good. We've done that here, right? We've had a Sunday where it was all about play, and we put out the hula hoops, and we set up the TikTok hopscotch things, and right? It's like play. How do you approach the things that you're doing? Are you bringing a sense of play to them? Because the thing about stepping into play is that you're allowing yourself to unattach yourself from your story. I'm too old. Oh, I can't do that. Oh, I don't have the energy for that. Or I don't have that, right? Now, granted, there are things that I could do when I was younger that I can't do now. So maybe I can't jump up and down on one foot as I do the hopscotch, but can I modify it so that I can do it now? Of course I can, right? It's not about the thing you're doing, it's about what you're bringing to it. Do you bring a sense of play? Do you bring a sense of adventure? Right? What if all my seeming identity is just a story I tell myself? What if I could step in and out of the stories as I pleased? Can you do that? Can you step in and out of your stories? You bet you can. What's the most powerful tool we have for stepping in and out of our stories? Play. Affirmative prayer, folks. Right? Affirmative prayer will give you an outlet to be able to step out of the narrative. We bring our concern. Oh, I'm feeling so old and my body aches and it hurts and I'm so tired. Anybody feel like that? And then you bring it into the prayer field. And in the prayer field, we know that there's wholeness, that there's light, that there's love. And when you step out of the prayer field, it doesn't mean that I'm ready to go run a marathon, perhaps, but it means that I am able to stand in this beautiful body temple with gratitude, with compassion, with a deeper ability to listen to what does this body temple need? Do I need to sleep more if I'm so tired? Do I need to go see an acupuncturist? What is it that I need that will support me to step into the truth of who I am more fully? Remember, it's not just praying and then expecting some invisible force to gift us with something. The prayer is to change our own consciousness so that we step into the world in a different way. And that is what I mean by embrace the process. What if every day you woke up and you were transformed? Just a little bit. Just a tiny little bit. But every day you woke up and you were transformed. So that you were unrecognizable to yourself a year later. Now, wouldn't that be cool? I think that would be awesome, right? Because what you're going to hold on to are the things that are the truth of who you are. More joy, more light, more love, more peace, more harmony, more wholeness. The things you're going to let go of, the voice in your head, that critical voice, the fear that always says, this will keep you safe, but it never says you are safe. Don't give in to the fear. That fear is always going to lead you a merry dance because you already are safe. So I love what she says here. You have promises to yourself that only you can keep. This is your journey. Walk it, dance it, sing it. I loved what Jeannie said, that our bodies are meant for singing. Because love will usher you every step of the way. But you have to pay attention to the guidance instead of the resistance. That's what we're being called into. So the weekly practice here, you can still join a study group if you like. There are study guides out there if you want to work on it on your own. But part of what you're being invited to ask is, what breadcrumbs might be calling to you right now? What are you not paying attention to because it scares you too much? Because you think it's going to upend your world. Let's upend all of our worlds. How would that sound? Can I get an amen? Don't we want to upend the world? Is the world working the way we want the world to work? So shall we upend it? It's got to start right here, right? It's got to start right here. We can't stay exactly the same and expect the world to be any different. What is a risk you feel called to take? When have you done something bold in the past, and how did it expand you? Bring those experiences into your present, into your consciousness. What sounds like fun right now? Chris and I are going back to the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence bingo, because that was fun. How would it feel to know right now that you were making exceptional choices? Not okay choices, not doing the best I can choices. What if you actually said, I am making exceptional choices? Everybody say that. Okay, let's try that again. One more time. Go. I am making exceptional choices. Right? Doesn't that feel good? Right? Something within us lights up and says, yes, you are. You may not see the path and you may not see where you're going, but it's going. You're going. And then what choice would you make right now? Right? Right now. What choice are you going to make? That is answering that most authentic self. Not the expectations, not the obligations. The most authentic expression of how you are called to be in the world. Start small. Baby steps, baby steps, baby steps. Just one step. You know, they talk about rockets, right? When they shoot them to the moon, or satellites and all of that, right? That we tend to think of it as like a straight line. You know, the rocket takes off and it goes, shoo! It doesn't work like that. The rocket takes off and they're like, oh, that's not where, oh, wait, we got to adjust. Oh, wait, we got to adjust. Oh, okay, until it finally lands where it's supposed to land. That's what life is. Can we embrace that? Not resist it. Let's take this into a time of meditation. So breathing into that space that we're creating, all about learning to trust ourselves, learning to trust this intuitive wisdom, learning to say, there is no wrong choice. There is just the choice I am making in this moment. And it is perfect. Because I am listening deeper than just my mind and my thoughts and that critical voice. I am listening to what is true, to the deepest essence of our beingness. So as we quiet the activity of these fabulous minds, which we give so much gratitude for, the invitation is to settle into the body, to welcome an integrated space where the divinity, the 100% divinity that we are, meets and interacts with the 100% human that we are. So I invite everyone to just ask yourself, what is the breadcrumb? What is the breadcrumb right now that I am being invited to step towards? And let's just rest in the inquiry for a few moments in the silence. How good it is to be still and know. How good it is to know that the willingness, the inquiry is enough. The willingness to listen more deeply, to listen to that authentic call to action. So I just bless where we all are right now, knowing that in this moment we are all making the most perfect, right choices. And we can celebrate them. We can lift them up. And we can give thanks and gratitude for our capacity to choose, to always choose anew. How grateful I am for this magnificent teaching, blessing our journeys, and so it is. Amen. So our affirmation: I trust my inner wisdom. I know I am making the right choices for myself at this moment in time. Can we know this together, please? I trust my inner wisdom. I know I am making the right choices for myself at this moment in time. And so it is.